All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on MSN Messenger and all the other multitude of social media networks now out there. One simple address, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Exonation, this hour we're going to be talking about human trafficking. My guest is Raymond Bechard, and Raymond is the author. He's an author, television producer, human rights advocate, and all-around provocateur. Not bad French, huh? Okay, he's worked to end injustice against all the people for 20 years. Raymond also advises social justice organizations in their mission to bring hope and encouragement to the world. Now, among other writings, he is the author of the recently published books, The Berlin Turnpike, a true story of human trafficking in America, which is a close historical examination of commercial sexual exploitation, and its place within all American communities. The book was recently adapted as a stage play by the Heart Best Ensemble Theater Company and will soon be the basis for the television series, The Turnpike Chronicles. Joining us is Raymond Bechard. And Raymond, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for taking on this tough topic.
It's not a tough topic. People say it's a tough topic, and I think it's a tough topic because people don't have the chutzpah or the balls to talk about it.
They really don't, and it's amazing how poorly they do when they finally do talk about it. They really get it wrong, and they've been getting it wrong for a long, long time.
Why do you think that is, Raymond?
Go ahead.
Why do you think that is? Why have people been getting it wrong?
It's very easily sensationalized, and I don't know why people want to sensationalize human trafficking. It's slavery. There's not two ways about it. But it has this titillizing factor of commercial sexual exploitation, of selling people for sex. Mm-hmm. And, there was a widespread panic across America over 100 years ago. It was called the white slave traffic back then. And it was in all the newspapers. People were up in arms about it. It was in the middle of the Great Migration, mm-hmm. where people were coming into the cities for the first times from an agrarian society. And all these horrors were supposed to be happening in the city. And for the first time as well, you had newspaper magnates who wanted to sell a lot of newspapers. And doing it through stories like these, mm-hmm. Young women being sold into sex slavery was a great way to sell newspapers. And it worked. And it works the same way today. We've seen news reports about it. We see movies being made about it. And we see a lot of nonprofits making a lot of money, raising money about it. But there are very few people addressing it correctly or talking about it in a factual way and getting the story right.
So what is the true story?
The true story, first of all, there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about what human trafficking is and isn't, how it starts, how people get recruited in it. And in 2000, at least in the United States, we passed a federal law called the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, and it defined human trafficking very clearly. And that is a commercial sex act in which force or fraud or coercion are used. Any one of those three, not all three, just any one of those is the legal test. And when there's a pimp involved, you're going to have one of those.
Sure.
Now, if the victim is a minor, and that's 17 years old inclusive or younger, then that legal test is irrelevant, and you've got commercial sexual exploitation, you've got human trafficking. So that's any commercial sex act involving a minor is human trafficking, is modern-day slavery. And so that's why this phrase of child prostitution really should make people very, very angry, because there's no such thing.
But you know, we live in a very promiscuous society. I've seen cases where young girls are using the internet to make money out of their bedrooms at night, exploiting themselves, and they have PayPal accounts and they're making money at it.
Oh, very, very young girls and young boys.
Yeah.
And you can go there. I just came from the National Missing Persons Conference in North Carolina, and was demonstrating to these folks live online. I was showing them these sites, and there were thousands of people, young people, sitting there waiting for customers, if you can call them that, to pay their money to have them do a, quote, show. Absolutely promiscuous. You know, let's face it, because of many, many reasons, cultural reasons, but because of the internet and what kids can see now and what they're exposed to, sexuality at a younger age to them is normal and acceptable, and they even aspire to it. I mean, let's face it, there's junior high students doing things in the back of the bus that I didn't know existed till after I got out of college.
All right, stand by. You and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break. Exo Nation, Raymond Bechard is our special guest. www.raymondbechard.com. That's RaymondBechard.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the Exo. Human trafficking is the topic of tonight's hour. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X-Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled LITE.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
When I grow up, I want to understand this concept and become a better human being because of it.
Who cares?
We care. That's why we're talking about human trafficking this hour here on the X Zone. Raymond Bechard is our special guest. www.raymondbechard.com. Is human trafficking on the rise? You know, people talk about human trafficking. You think about Asia, you think about the Philippines, you think about countries that are not, and I hope nobody gets the wrong idea of this, you know, as cultured as we are here in North America and in Western, Eastern Europe. Is human trafficking touching all parts of the world now?
All parts of the world and every community in North America as well. And it's about to absolutely explode, especially in Canada, because the Supreme Court of Canada just wiped out all the anti-prostitution laws.
Mm-hmm.
So you are about to see a huge sex tourism influx from America to Canada, because men will be able to go to Canada and buy sex from women or anyone really, and completely within the law. And it's extremely easy for human trafficking, for that force, fraud, coercion for younger people to be exploited within a legal system. In other words, it's very easy for human trafficking to hide within legal prostitution, and that's what you've got in Canada now.
But isn't it true that when Holland gave certain parts to legalize prostitution, that sex crimes decreased?
No, not necessarily. What happened was they stopped measuring a certain type of sex crimes. In other words, they took away a certain segment of sex crimes, didn't call them that anymore. So yeah, they decreased. they didn't define them that as much.
But even according to the justice system in the Netherlands, according to their statistics, sex crimes, domestic sex crimes on sex workers went down.
I'm not sure how they're measuring it. I have no idea their methodology. The only country I've seen where it works, where people are actually protected from sex crimes against sex workers, was Sweden. And Sweden was the first country that went against the millennial-old attitude that we punish the sex worker or arrest the woman and slap the guy's wrist.
But there are legalized areas of the United States where, prostitution is legal.
There are. And let me tell you what happens there. One of them was Rhode Island, believe it or not. In Rhode Island, it was not illegal to practice prostitution indoors. So from New York to Boston, even Philadelphia, the pimps would bring their girls to Rhode Island and practice their trade indoors, in strip clubs, in brothels, with total impunity. And the girls would dance, they would service guys in booths or in a back room, and we watched them. Every 60, 90 minutes, the girls would come out the front door, back door, and they would go out to their pimp's car in the parking lot and hand over all the cash.
Yeah.
With any crime like this, like drug trade, it's extremely difficult to measure because it's going to hide. And the more you try to regulate it, the more it hides. So it's incredibly difficult for any government or any organization to really get a measure on things and how it's increasing or decreasing. The one increase we can see everywhere is on the internet through the hundreds of thousands of websites that are offering women and men for sale for sex in every community, as I said, in North America and around the world. Even on social networking sites like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, there are hundreds of thousands of escort agencies advertising their company the same way anybody else would advertise their auto repair shop or their church or their school. You can just, quite frankly, just do a search for escort agencies on Facebook, and they all come up.
So the legalization of it, wouldn't it make it easier to police?
It would make the legal trade of it easier.
Yeah, well, you're never going to have a society where everything is legal and above board. That'll never happen.
Well, sure, that'll never happen, but it doesn't mean we eradicate all laws. What's happening, what the Canadian Supreme Court did was they eradicated laws against prostitution and against houses of prostitution, brothels, and against advertising, and against making money off of somebody else's sex work. In other words, they legalized pimps.
Okay.
All in the name of safety for the sex worker.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is a point to be made there. Could it be legalized? Could it be regulated the same way you do for, say, licensed massage therapists? And they have to go to training, and they have to, be certified and get a license and have a medical exam.
Well, let's be honest. Let's be honest. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a money maker for the government.
It could be, and usually
It will be.
things that are considered vices become legal and taxable in times of economic strife.
Sure.
It happened with Prohibition in the Great Depression.
Yeah,
and it's happening now in America with marijuana.
Exactly.
With the Great Recession.
Yeah.
The difficulty with this is it makes it much easier to disguise human trafficking as legal prostitution. In other words, this very difficult and diabolical crime where someone is controlling someone else is very easy to disguise as legitimate prostitution. It's easy to force somebody into it.
All right, I can see the concern with the children, the under the age of majority.
Yeah.
However, if you've got a 25, 26-year-old person who wants to actively engage in the sex trade, what are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
If you've got two consenting adults,
very little you can do about it. And my concern, and my book, what I wrote about, doesn't really tackle the topic of two really consenting, independently adults who have their own feet and destiny up to their own choice. My problem is when you have someone's free will compromised by someone else. And that can happen by a pimp, it can happen by a boyfriend, a husband, even a mother, and it can happen at any age. That's where I have a difficulty, and that's where law enforcement has a difficulty.
Tell me,
now,
tell me, why did you decide to pick up this flag and carry it?
Yeah, I worked for a number of NGOs around the world in human rights issues many years ago, and started to see human trafficking in a lot of its forms, and really didn't even then know what to call it. Child soldiering, forced and exploited labor, commercial sexual exploitation. And then I was filming a documentary about this foster care mother in New York City. She was caring for a 5-year-old girl named Karen, who was HIV positive. And this foster mother was doing a wonderful job caring for this very weak, very small little girl, adorable little girl. And I was talking to the city worker who was handling the case, and she pulled me aside and she said, this little girl is one of the lucky ones. And I said, how is that possible? She's 5 years old. She didn't have long to live. She never saw her 7th birthday. She said because this girl's mother tried to sell her when she was 2 days old for $200 on the streets of Brooklyn because she was an addict. And I thought to myself, I asked her, how often does that happen? And she said, all day, every day, thousands of times a day. We have no idea. We just know it happens all the time. We just happen to catch this one. That's why she's lucky. And I thought, okay, so this is slavery. There's more slaves in the world now than there ever has been. Why is this not a huge story, and why aren't people addressing it correctly? So it's not as really, Rob, like I picked up the flag. The flag was really kind of put in my hand, and it stuck there.
All right, so tell me, what changes do you hope to see made, and what are you doing to make these changes happen?
Well, one of the things we've done is especially address what we call the Facebook issue. When I was researching my book, I came to realize very quickly that there was a massive amount of child pornography on Facebook. And we wanted to address this, but Facebook didn't, because to address it was to acknowledge it. But pedophiles, for the first time in human history, instead of hiding in their basements and looking at pictures of either they traded with somebody somehow or took themselves, were now able to use these images and videos as currency and trade with each other around the world, using Facebook as a platform for it, using Facebook to connect with each other, even through translation software. Nothing mattered. Language barriers, cultural barriers, and there were millions and millions of images and videos of children in sexual images on Facebook. We tried to get Facebook to answer. They wouldn't. So we started a cause on causes.com, and before we knew it, we had 1.5 million followers. We were one of the largest causes on their platform. And since then, Facebook has finally taken some measures, because of the pressure we put on them, to work with the police in all of their offices around the world. It was the strangest thing, Rob, because they have a reporting system on Facebook. If you see child pornography, you are supposed to report it. And we called them and said, well, how about reporting these things to the police? And they told us point blank, no, you should use our reporting system. And I asked them, what other crime can you tell me that when you witness it, you report it to a corporation and not law enforcement, especially one as diabolical and horrible as child pornography?
Let's see. If somebody steals your credit card, uses it, you report it to the bank. You don't report it to the police. So there's an example.
Exactly. But you do know that the bank is going to call the police.
No, they don't. They investigate it inside. Very rarely do bank fraud cases go to the police on a credit card.
Well, I wouldn't at all stop at calling my bank if somebody called. I'd make 2 calls. I'd call Facebook and I'd call the police. Here's the big difference: the bank doesn't erase the evidence if you call the police and there's a fraud investigation. So if you report a child pornography image to Facebook, they remove it. The evidence is gone. So the police have no way to investigate it. And we were asking Facebook, are you reporting these things to the police? And while they were saying yes, we had no evidence of that. We were being told by the FBI that it took 8 months for Facebook to answer their questions.
So what is law enforcement? What is law enforcement saying? We're talking a lot here about Facebook, but let's get to the crunch. What is law enforcement doing about it? What is the government doing about it?
Well, it depends on the area.
All right, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think about this, because I've got to take my break here. Exo Nation, we're talking about human trafficking, slavery, prostitution. Strange hour here on the Exo. Raymond Bechard's our guest, www.raymondbechard.com, and we will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news. And as always, if you have any comments, if you'd like to voice your opinion, send us an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. Human trafficking, I'm dead against it. I'm dead against any crime against a person, especially children. Being an ex-cop myself, I want to know what law enforcement is doing about this. Because a crime is a crime. And if Facebook is hiding behind the rights of a person of freedom of expression, we've got major problems. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news. Don't go away. Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com. $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. Now you can dial in to listen to the X Zone Radio Show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365.
These guys are the best!
Well, it's not my thing, but I'm sure youngsters everywhere will be delighted.
1-800-610-7035. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. Social media network, X Zone Radio TV. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. We're talking about child prostitution, human trafficking, the sex trade, and what people are doing about it, especially when it comes to kids and people who are forced into the sex trade against their will. Our guest is Raymond Bechard. His website is www.raymondbechard.com. Now, Raymond, you use we, the plural. Who is the we that you keep talking about?
Well, there's a few of us that kind of fight this online and fight it through legislation, and we investigate individual cases as well. So it's a small community. And that's what I mean by we. It's really not any kind of organization. It's just a few of us who feel the same way about it and try to do the best we can.
All right. So what have you accomplished, and what is law enforcement doing about this?
As far as accomplishment, we've actually been able to change several laws because we've had to work very closely with legislators to show them the weakness in the laws. The fight against this, the fight against the modern form of human trafficking is really still in its infancy, both on the legislative level and on the law enforcement level. And we've been able to get escort ads removed from some Tribune company-owned newspapers that were proven by the Department of Justice to be human trafficking, yet they continue to run them for years. So we've been able to do little chunks of victory along the way. Law enforcement is another issue. It really depends on the department, whether it's local or provincial or state or federal. Its fight against human trafficking is indeed in its infancy. Very few in law enforcement really recognize human trafficking for what it is, and so often I get the response that, that just doesn't happen in this town. And I have to go on the internet and show them the websites and show them how it's happening right in their town, no matter how small. Much of the recruitment of girls, especially, happens in very rural communities or bus stations coming from rural communities. So it's taking a long time to get law enforcement to wake up to this.
You know, when people hear about human trafficking, they think about people who are being smuggled into countries in containers, and who are.
That's not what it is. Go ahead.
So basically, your gripe is about prostitution, the sex trade.
My gripe is about human trafficking. It's about someone's free will being taken away from them, either by the use of drugs or real mind manipulation. These pimps are incredibly smart. They're incredibly manipulative. They study hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, sales techniques. I mean, they look for girls who they understand have a self-esteem or self-worth issue, and they can see them in an instant at a bus station, in a foster care system, in a shelter, or even behind a cash register at Walmart. And they romance them. They woo them. They recruit them that way. It's not done by kidnapping. It has, even though it's called trafficking, it has nothing to do with movement. The law I mentioned before, force, fraud, coercion, age of the victim, nothing to do with movement. So it's not about across state lines or international borders. It's nothing about smuggling. And very rarely is kidnapping involved. It does happen. That's what makes the headlines. That's what gets people to raise money for nonprofits. However, you don't want the entire nation looking for your what is to you as a pimp your product, because you've just kidnapped it. It's much, much easier, especially with the sexualization of younger people these days, to recruit somebody into the working for you willingly. And then they work on breaking them in and literally get them addicted. It's like the Stockholm Syndrome on steroids. They get the girls addicted to their own personality so that they think they can't survive without being near that pimp and doing exactly what he says. Chains and shackles aren't needed for this kind of slavery. Drugs are often used along with this manipulation, and these pimps telling these girls words they've been waiting to hear since they were children. The one common denominator that we've had with the victims I've worked with is early sexual abuse. And we know that's 25 to 35% of the female population. That's a huge amount of girls that are really, they find, open to this recruitment. And that's how they get into it. And much of that happens online as well. Much of that recruitment happens online or in person. They will use all means necessary to find new product. Because unlike the drug trade, there's no war against human trafficking like there's the war against drug. Every local, state, and federal cop, investigator, detective, and drudge knows how to prosecute drug crimes. Nobody knows what to do with human trafficking crimes. There's no suspicion to be with your product. If I've got a pound of cocaine on me, that's pretty suspicious. I'm getting arrested. I'm going to jail. If I have 2 girls in my car, I just have 2 girls in my car. That's 100% profit. In other words, I sell that pound of cocaine, I've got to use some of that money to restock my inventory. I sell my girls, they come back to me. I'm only renting them. It's 100% profit every time. And if I do get arrested, if I'm the detective making the arrest and I make a drug arrest, my police department gets what's called the asset forfeiture. We get all the assets of the drug dealer. We get his cars, his house, his bling, his money, his jewelry. Sell it online, bunch of websites selling police department asset forfeiture. In human trafficking, the victim gets the assets. So there's a much more reduced motive for law enforcement to go after these crimes. They're very hard to see, very hard to prove. They're very inexperienced at it, and quite frankly, there's nothing in it for them.
So you're basically saying that the law enforcement agencies and the judicial system isn't going to touch human trafficking and the sex trade as you're describing it because they can't make any money at it?
Many of them don't. There's no professional motive. There are task force, and again, they are in their infancy as well, and they do make a few arrests, but they're very small. They are not given many resources, and these crimes take an enormous amount of time and influence and resources to investigate and prosecute fully. We had 2 brothers in my home state of Connecticut. One was the first to be prosecuted in a courtroom under that law I mentioned before. He was prosecuted in 2007, and this is what I wrote the book about. His name was Dennis Paris. He's doing 30 years in a federal penitentiary because it was a great case for the government to take. They spent millions of dollars on it. They had several federal agencies. It took them 2 years. In 2010, they arrested his brother for the same crimes, and he was far more brutal than his old brother. His partner was his wife, who was a Connecticut state trooper, a Connecticut law enforcement officer. She was in on it with him. The federal prosecutors didn't want to take another human trafficking case, didn't want to spend the time and the money. They had done it. They gave it to the state prosecutors. The law was too weak. They didn't even want. They had never tried a human trafficking trial under the laws. So they just reduced the charges to promoting prostitution. He'll probably do about 2 years, where his brother, for the very same crimes, is doing 30 on a federal level. So it's extremely subjective what prosecutors will take and what detectives will investigate. Right now, there's not a high motive to do it.
What's the caseload like? How many complaints or how many cases would an average police department investigate a year? Or how many complaints would they receive pertaining to human trafficking in the context that you're describing it?
As far as complaints, very few. They really, to find them, they go looking for them. It's really like complaints against organized crime. The ordinary citizen isn't going to, find it, see it, and complain about it. In other words, there's still women working on the street corner, and someone still may call up and say, well, these girls have been working on our street corner. We want you guys to do something, and then the police will do something. But see, now, for every girl working the street, there are thousands online. And the regular citizen isn't going online saying, oh, my gosh, look at this. I'm going to call my police department because of what's online. So if there is some sort of task force set up to specifically look for it, there aren't going to be any complaints. Now, having said that, some task force have been set up. They do look for it. They look for it online, and if they're given the right amount of resources, you'll see the federal government, the FBI, making a couple of busts every year with children being rescued. But it's a drop in the bucket.
Where do you get
for
your
what you see online? And if you're using that as a measure, it's a drop in the bucket for what
you're saying it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Where do you get your information for your research that allows you to say that, first of all, the law enforcement agencies don't prosecute these cases because they can't make any money, and basically you're saying there's no kickback for them. And then all these statistics, where do they come from if there is no government agency that's monitoring these kind of crimes?
There is the Department of Justice does try to monitor it. And they just came out with a report that was actually pretty good in showing it on the increase and showing what different people pay in different cities, how recruitment happens. And that's on my website as well. I just wrote an article on that DOJ report that came out. The last report done on it was commissioned by John D. Rockefeller in 1912 in New York City. That's about how often good reports come out on this, is about every 100 years. So how am I getting this? I'm really not citing any statistics because as far as statistics go, there are very few good ones. A good portion of my book is dedicated to the fact that the statistics are just horribly put together. The methodology is extremely questionable, and nobody really knows. What I've done is spent my time researching the number of websites offering sex for sale, sex tourism, the number of escort agencies that are advertising on Facebook, and the number of sex for sale related websites overall. When you do a search, when you look at them, the number of especially younger women who are offered on particular websites, we've measured those over time, and those have increased dramatically. When you look at these websites, they see your IP address, they know where you are, so they populate the page when you go to them with all the girls available in your town or city. And those numbers just go up. You can see them going up month by month. And so because it's just becoming more acceptable, especially the live webcams. Of course, there's no personal contact there. They're certainly are safe from the customer, but no one really knows why or if they have a free choice in performing these acts in front of a webcam or not.
So if there is a girl, she's underage, she decides to go into business for herself, she's not being pimped, she's not being coerced, she's not being defrauded, there's no criminal intent from anyone else. What do you do about that?
In that case, the person buying her is the criminal. And it's kind of interesting. When we're passing a law here in Connecticut, and I was testifying before this judicial committee, and we were trying to increase the penalty for the customer who was paying to have sex with a girl, and if she was underage, whether or not he knew she was underage. And one of the legislators was giving me a hard time in the testimony I was giving. He was firing questions at me saying, well, why should we punish a guy if he doesn't know she's underage? And I said, okay, I tried to be kind of nice because it was a big crowd, a lot of people listening, and I didn't want to humiliate the guy. I needed his vote to pass this law. And the third time he asked me, I said, listen, you've got a 19-year-old male. Let's make it older. Let's say we've got a 22-year-old male, and he starts dating a girl, meets a girl. She says she's 19, and they're going out for a couple months. They become intimate. But then her parents find out, and they know that the girl's only 14. She just said she was 19 because she wanted to go out with a 22-year-old male. Well, whether he knew it or not, he's going to get charged with sexual assault of a minor because she's 14. And I asked him, why is it okay if he paid her and didn't know? And I said, sir, why is paid pedophilia okay with you, but pedophilia isn't?
How are you going to get away? How are you going to get around the case where it's no big secret that members of the clergy indulge in pedophilia? You know,
You're not going to get around it.
So what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it?
Well, we did get one arrested. There was a guy online on Facebook. He was trading child pornographic pictures all over the internet.
Yeah.
I had several false profiles on Facebook set up to try to trap these guys. Trapped him. We found out where he was. We reported him to Kentucky ICAC, that's Internet Crimes Against Children. And 3 days later, they arrested the guy. His name's Jerry Cannon, and he was a pastor of a church with a wife and 3 kids, and now he's doing time.
There you go.
So you just got to go in and you got to get your hands dirty, and that's kind of why.
Isn't that the job? Isn't that the job for law enforcement, trained law enforcement professionals, and not John Q. Public? You know, you're starting to sound like an internet vigilante.
Well, being vigilant doesn't mean you're a vigilante. And law enforcement, of course, these days is stretched very, very thin. They've got to take the urgent crimes and things happening within their jurisdiction, the thing that public safety. This gets pushed to the back burner if bigger things are happening or if their budgets are being constrained, which they are. In the town I grew up in, I knew one of the detectives very well. And I looked at that time, it was Craigslist was being used a lot for human trafficking and prostitution and what have you, all the 6 different sex crimes.
All right, we're going to have to ask you to hold on because we have to take our final break here. X-Zone Nation, we're talking about child trafficking, child prostitution, children committing sex acts on the internet, and much more. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Send me an email. Tell me what you think, either on our social media networks at X-Zone Radio TV or by email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. We'll be back on the other side of this news break. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
When I grow up, I want to understand this concept and become a better human being because of it.
Who cares?
Like I said on the other break week here at the X-Zone, www.xzoneradiotv.com is our website. We're talking about everything from child prostitution to kids on the internet to human trafficking. Our guest is Raymond Bechard. His website is raymondbechard.com. So where does this problem originate? Is it in the home? Is it because parents don't give a damn? Or, what's the real root reason?
I tell you what, Rob, the real reason is men. I mean, men are buying these girls. They're the ones driving the market.
But why? But why do girls allow themselves to get in the position where they're targeted by these pimps? Is it because of the problems they've had being brought up? Is it because they've had parents who don't give a damn? There's got to be a reason. It's easy to say it's the guys who pay for the sex, but why do the girls and why do the guys get into the sex trade? Why don't they just run away from the pimps, run to the police, seek protection from society instead of going out there and doing the same thing day after day after day after day?
Well, I am victim blaming. I find abhorrent, but and then these people are victims. It's kind of like blaming Hurricane Katrina victims as being, wind and rain enthusiasts.
But they were a victim of an act of God. They weren't victim of a person who sought them out because they had a psychological problem, whether it was because they had no self-esteem or that they had a misplaced childhood or God forbid that they were actually the recipient of some sexual abuse.
And that's what happens. So here's the thing: you're asking why isn't there some safety net, a family member, perhaps a church, school, society? Yeah. It's because those safety nets are flawed. They don't work, especially the family. If people want to go on YouTube and just look up the Berlin Turnpike and the phrase "two girls,"
okay, but hold on here. Okay, you're saying that the system doesn't work. The system has flaws in it. You know what? So, you go on the internet, you look after these guys who are going after these young kids, and by the way, I applaud you for that. You get them arrested. What about getting the parents arrested who screwed up as parents, neglected their kids, put them on the street, or forced them to either take drugs or to get into these situations that ruin them for life?
Get that question constantly. Where are these kids' parents? Yeah. Well, many times the parents are the ones that are either working the street corner up from them or getting them into it. In the case I wrote the book about, one of the girl's aunts got her into it. And then one of those girls got her friend from high school into it. It was the girls recruiting the girls. There was no one there to say no. There was no one there to say, listen, you're worth more than this. What these pimps are convincing these girls is that rape is normal, is that this is what they were born to do. And there's no one there. Quite frankly, I'll just put it out there, there's no one there to actually love them. They've never experienced real, unconditional love. Never experienced it. When they see it, they don't even recognize it.
I can understand the prosecution of a person who breaks the law.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people get on the bandwagon who want to crucify the pimps. They want to crucify the Johns. I'd like to see the parents get crucified. Because that's where it starts. That's where it starts.
Absolutely. If you don't know how to love your kids, but understand, we're now 3-4 generations into kids whose parents have had no parenting skills.
Hey, John. Hey, Raymond, I hate to do this, but we've run out of time for tonight. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Continued success in your fight. And, go to www.raymondbechard.com. See for yourself. I agree with the premise. I agree with the law, but I also think that the parents or whoever's turned these kids and given these kids a reason to become victimized should also pay the piper. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. I'll be back on the other side of this news break at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.